Welcome to Love and Speak the Truth with me, Sister Brenda, the podcast where all voices are heard with diverse guests from all over the globe. We make space for stories of integrity, justice, freedom, and joy. So come along. We're not afraid to get into the tough stuff, and we're actually not afraid to laugh along the way. So buckle up, open your heart, open your mind, and let's get this party started. I am particularly happy and joyful in this moment to introduce you to three dear friends, old shoe friends, never gonna end till we be dead friends. For nearly 40 years, we have shared life in all its fullness, sorrow and celebration, loss of parents and siblings, mountaintop moments in ministry, meaningful work for justice, and even a few exotic adventures across the globe. Through it all, we have witnessed and shared the abundant goodness of God in our lives. All three are highly educated and distinguished teachers, professors, counselors, and advocates for change. Women of integrity, courage, and conviction. Proudly feminist, joyfully persistent, and occasionally dubbed the Twisted Sisters. We have stood together in faith and friendship through every season. Dr. Sister Joan Scanlon, Dominican Sister of Peace, Sister Maureen McGrath, Adrian Dominican, and Associate of the Cincinnati Dominican Sisters, MaDonna Thelen. It'll be a real treat for you to listen in. Welcome, welcome, my friends. Want to welcome to Love and Speak the Truth, my dear friends, MaDonna Thelen, Joan Scanlon, Maureen McGrath. It's so good to have you here today. And we're going to talk about friendship. And we all know the meaning of friendship because we've been friends for at least 40 years. And I am excited to share our conversation wherever it leads us. Okay, so welcome all three of you. Why don't we begin by just sharing a little bit about what you're doing now? And our listeners from across the globe will want to know where you are, what you're doing.
Well, this is MaDonna, and I am retired from 50 years of education. And currently, I am volunteering with a group called Migrant Ministries, and we respond to the needs of the migrants who are in the greater Chicago area. I live in a western suburb, LaGrange, Illinois. Basically, our work consists of responding to the needs of the migrants, particularly in relationship to the current government's Operation Midway Blitz that has put the migrants in great fear and in great danger. So we respond to their needs, and we advocate for families, migrant families. And in addition to that, I'm also a member of two choirs, and I'm a worship assistant with Unity Temple, and I'm the head of our immigration justice team.
I can follow up on MaDonna's introduction. I'm a Dominican Sister of Peace. I live in South Bend, Indiana, and I'm sort of in the retirement phase of my life, but I'm involved in two volunteer ministries in a program out of Notre Dame called Tutor Notre Dame, and we tutor kids in the public schools because the reading scores are abominable. And I wanted some way to help somebody during these difficult times. So that's what I do. My other volunteer ministry is working with the eviction court. And I really work as kind of a receptionist, but it's a chance to meet people who are in very difficult straits and at least give them a smile and a friendly face when they're coming into the court. And I also do some facilitation of groups, mostly of religious sisters. We've been involved in so many different adventures and ministries over the past years. We'd still be talking if we went through the whole history.
So, Maureen, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I do. My name is Maureen McGrath. I'm a Dominican from a congregation located in Michigan, specifically Adrian, Michigan. I am presently living in South Bend and working at Holy Cross Village. It's a large complex caring for residents in skilled care, memory care, assisted living, some independent, and also rehab.
and I'm loving it. I think I started my ministry in high school working with the elderly, and here am I, an elder, working again with the elderly and loving every second. As Joan already mentioned, we've joined a couple committees, some of the issues of our time.
Excellent. Thank you. You know what? I think if we jump into this, we can maybe share a little bit about this stage of life because there's a lot of activity. There's lots of work going on in terms of still doing service. We know what that's all about. But what is it like to be doing this ministry, being on mission at this stage in life?
I think it's a real challenge at this stage in your life, especially for those of us who've always been in charge of things. We're
Mhm,
used to being the person in charge, and we've done a lot of that. And now um, I have two coaches that teach me and lead me to teach phonics. But some interesting things happened. These little kids, they asked me something about Bad Bunny, and I said, "Oh, I know who Bad Bunny is," and that sort of gave me thousands of points. They thought I was really cool, and I knew that Steph Curry, think I'm pronouncing his name correctly, that he wrote The GOAT, and it's about him, and they love
mhm,
that. So, the teachers call me the Hep Nun, and I don't feel like I'm Hep at all, but it's kind of, revelatory when you're kind of sitting in a different place, and I began my
mhm,
educational career teaching 1st grade, and here I am teaching phonics again. It's a challenge, but,
mhm.
very rewarding.
I want to pick up on something that Joan said at
Yeah.
this stage of life, being in charge when we're used to being in charge for most of our life. And that
Mm,
was one of the things when I retired. I was so grateful to wake up in the morning and not to have to feel responsible for a million things. But all of a sudden now I find myself in charge of different different
mhm,
groups. One of the things I failed to mention in my introduction is I'm an associate with the Cincinnati Dominicans, and I'm on the leadership circle of the associates and
mm,
in charge of the 230 some associates in terms of leadership. I'm the leader of the immigration justice team, and I was asked in December to return to Guatemala with Dominican students, which I had done many times before when I was ministering there, and again being in charge of a group. So it's a different kind of in charge at this point in time
mhm,
in my life and in my ministry, but I think in some ways it never leaves you,
mm.
that call to leadership.
Yeah, the call to leadership, the call to continue to engage. At every stage of life, we're called to continue to engage in that which makes the world a better place, our
Mhm.
communities a better place, right?
I feel in my
Yeah.
ministry now, the difference is similar to what both Donna and Joan said, and you, Brenda, uh, a different sort of presence to people. My past ministry was helping people in neighborhoods that were struggling economically and also with drugs and violence, etc. And I ran a center that offered food services, not food sitting down for a meal, but pantry. And when I was leaving there, one of the women said to me, "Sister, I so appreciated
Mhm,
you because you saw me." I think I knew what she was talking about, but I wanted her to explain it. And I said, "Well, I've seen you for the last 4 years, of course, or 6 or 8 years."
mhm,
She said, "No, you saw me. You knew me and you understood me and you cared for me." Another woman
mhm,
during COVID that
mhm,
came to the center, I just saw her
mhm,
at a dollar store or a Dollar Tree, and I said, "Hi, Louise." Now, all that was sharing were her eyes. And I just said, "Hi, Louise." And she said, "Who are you? And how do you know me?" I said, "Sister Maureen. And I know you from your eyes. You have beautiful eyes. And I've seen them for the last few years. How could I not recognize you?" She said, "You knew me by my eyes?" And from that moment, our relationship changed. I think, there's a game that little children play, Peekaboo, I See You, and kids used to
mhm,
giggle and smile. Well,
mhm,
don't we all? delight when people truly see us, both on two levels. Both they see us physically and they understand us. And I think
Mhm,
that's been some of the joy of the work I do with the seniors. I'm able to love them just by being with
mhm.
them, seeing them, understanding, and bringing whatever comfort I can. So it's a different focus, even though I'm doing the job, which is life enrichment, exercise, and activities. But there's a certain freedom in older years in ministry.
Yeah, there's we can talk at this stage a lot about what we're doing, and that makes so much sense to me what you just said, Maureen. What we're doing and who we're still becoming, no matter what age, continues to show up in the people that we serve and what it is that we do. I'm reminded of some of the various activities that we were involved in our ministries, whether it was doing peer ministry and in the high school, teaching the young women that we served, MaDonna, at Unity Catholic High School, how to be leaders and how to find their own voice, or with Maureen at the university, working on retreats. Maureen and Joan and I worked on the women's retreat. All of that connection happened because we could see people. We could see the quality of giving of themselves because we gave from our gifts. We can see the quality in them that we're called really not just as religious people, but as human beings, as created by God. I'm trying to think of who it was, if it was Mary Ward or actually Mother Teresa, that the thing that happens to us when we disconnect, and she didn't say it that way, this is a little bit of a paraphrase, but when we see each other, we create space for peace. We create space to love. And when we forget that, that's when we get the disconnect and peace doesn't happen. I think that's what one of the things for me that friendship does. We became friends and we began to model the service that we were trying to give in our respective places. And now it's not so much doing, but it's being. Doesn't matter what age or even what we're doing. It's how we're being on mission at this stage in life, you know? And I think that for me, the friendship prepares me to be faithful to that mission.
I'd agree with that, Brenda. And I think that part of what all of us have been through, all four of us have been through, is that we've been itinerant. We've moved from one place to another to another. So we haven't stayed in the same place for 40 years, which means we've
Hmm.
had create new webs of friendship and support. And I think anybody in any kind of caring ministry needs a support system that's just for that, for them and for their ministry. And I think it's very hard to be on your own, that you need a group to share ideas with and to share funny stories with and to help you laugh at yourself because you you make a lot of mistakes over the years and people call you to accountability or tell you not to take yourself so seriously. So I think friendship does that,
Hmm.
makes it possible to
Yeah.
not focused on yourself, but look at the broader need in the broader world. And I'm grateful for the three
Yes.
of you
Yes.
in my life to have given that kind of feedback over the years.
When I think about friendship, to add to what you said, Joan, I think of that support along the way as we feel our call in mission,
Hmm.
both support to undergird our response to that call, as well as support to meet the challenge of that call. When I thought about this question, I thought about our friendship, Brenda, when I first got to know you, and you invited me to come with you to Belize. Now, I had not been to a poorer nation, and I said, "What are we going to do?" And you said, "Missionary work." I had no idea what that would mean, but how that friendship was able to undergird my response to that call that came from you. I think it was a call from the Spirit. And I think that the love and the friendship both sustained that call and gave me the strength to respond to that call, to meet that challenge, which was a brand new experience that I had never had before in my life, and how that led to down a whole different road in terms of my uh, work in international service, particularly at Dominican, and taking students to Haiti and El Salvador and Venezuela and Mexico and Guatemala and South Africa and and all of those experiences. And that never would have happened without that support of friendship and that call that came from a friend.
Along the way, what we find out, everything that we do before where we are now has brought us to a point where it's been in preparation to where we are now. I think good friendship teaches us how to be faithful. It teaches us how to keep going, doesn't it? From all those places that we've been to in our work, in particular, MaDonna, in the service work, we've brought that not only internationally, but to places in the inner city of Chicago. I know that we've had dreams to do service no matter what stage in life we're in. What we're going to do is we're going to get out there and make a difference. And I think the support we have, each one of you, for me, have been that support. I've invited you and you've invited me to enter in at all those different levels at each stage of my own life. It's true. We're still becoming at every stage in life, we're still becoming who we're meant to be and finding that purpose. I wonder, what do you think the purpose is for your life at this stage? What have you been being prepared for your whole life? Perhaps that sense of call to be more.
I don't know if I would call it a call to be more, but I think at this point, I do feel like everything that has happened in my life has been preparing me for where I am right now. And
Mhm.
one of those things is recognizing the importance of friendship and community in order to respond to where I'm feeling called. In this work, this volunteer work that I'm doing with the migrants, I'm so aware that this is not something that any one of us could do alone. We can only do it together, and we can only do it because we are spurred on by the community and by the relationships within the community.
Mhm.
And that is what builds us up and keeps us in the fight against struggling against these terrible forces of violence that are out there that are working to destroy human persons who happen to be immigrants. It is what keeps us hopeful. It's what keeps us struggling. If we were alone, we would never be able to do that. We just wouldn't have the psychological, the emotional, the spiritual energy to do that. It's in our connections with one another and drawing inspiration from our friends and from our friendships and knowing that we have a long-term friendship that will sustain us as we experience the highs and lows, the ups and downs, the challenges and
Mm.
deeds of each of these moments, whether they're, the challenges of meeting the ministry or our own physical health challenges or other challenges like experiencing a lot of deaths in our lives. Friendship and community are the things that keep us in the struggle and keep us responding to who we are called to be at this moment.
Yes, it's so true. It's all about connection, isn't it? There's the community, the friendship, the purpose of coming together as, say, human family. It's about being connected to who we all are and recognizing that, I think, creates an environment that is peace, really.
I think Donna was speaking like a true Dominican. She was lifting up the pillar of community, prayer, study, community, and ministry are the foundations of the order. And we also have this statement that is so key to Dominican life, which is to contemplate and to give to others the fruits of your contemplation. And I think that you have a lot of things to think about when you get to be this age. You have learned a lot. I think we have time now to be more reflective and step back a little bit and not be as kind of in charge as when we were always leading the charge, but we're in a different way. And we're leading it from a more reflective posture. And we have ways to reflect that are helpful to give care for others.
I think each chapter, each new chapter, each new day does create a letting go of yesterday, a letting go of where we've been. I'm reading a book now by Reverend Marion Buddy, and she reflects on Howard Thurman and how he left what he had been preparing his whole life for to take on the ministerial leadership more focused on interfaith ministry. And I think we don't know where we're going to be called or what we're going to be asked to be or to do. And we just have to trust that everything that we have done along the way is preparing us for this ministry and requires us to let go of the past. But knowing that the past is richly, deeply embedded in our character, in our values, in our response to life.
It's all about connections, you're right. Religious life, religious people, we've changed. I mean, sisters are diminishing. You are three different Dominicans in this conversation, and I'm a CJ. But essentially, we as religious women, we don't have as much of those distinctions as we once did. I think we're much more integrated into living a spiritual life that's connected to everything. We're not necessarily teachers in schools anymore, or preachers on mission, or advocates doing social justice, or all of the above. We're all involved in all these things in some way, shape, or form, even in our diminishment.
So the question of how have you changed, I look at that more a personal growth question, like how have I grown? I think each of the experiences in my life, and I'm not avowed religious, but I am deeply connected to the Dominican family through my relationship as an associate of the Cincinnati Dominicans. And one of the things that I'm aware of in my life in how I have changed is I have allowed the experiences of my life and my ministry to open me to different ways of seeing and understanding the world. I'll go back to that initial experience of going with you to Belize, Brenda, that opened my eyes to seeing things in a whole different way. I remember one day walking down the street, looking at the street and thinking these were dead bugs, and they were mango pits that had dried, and they looked like these massive centipedes to me. And I just had to laugh at myself because I thought the way I see the world is not the way the world really is. And that simple, funny experience has stayed with me, that every single experience and every single relationship along the way has opened me to a new way of seeing and being in the world. I feel much more at ease right now in my work and in my ministry. I'm not so driven, and yet everything that has happened along the way has prepared me for that.
I think Maureen was about to tell a little story about the two of us at the Christmas party. I'd like to follow up on it.
The story had to do with attitudes and our attitudes in ministry, our attitudes in life, really. But it was a year after both Joan and I had left Loyola, where we had ministered Joan was a professor and I was in ministry. And we were sitting at a party, Christmas party, looking around at another 60 or 70 people. And Joan said, "I don't recognize a soul here." And I said, "Joan, We don't recognize them and they don't recognize us. We were the who's who last year, and this year we're the who's that. I think that one of the things that bring to friendship is to help us laugh about things. I mean, laughter, they say, or somebody said, is a great medicine, and it's true. To be able to laugh at ourselves and laugh at the events of our lives that we hold so tightly, and then we find out, let it go, let it go.
Yes.
I think both Donna and Maureen talking about letting go, that's really what's a lot of what's happening. And you discover it in ways. I look in my closet and I say, why do I have these clothes? I'm not going to wear them. They're just there. In my other life, I would wear them, but now I don't need them. It's a small thing, but it tells you that this is what your life is right now, some letting go. And you have to have a sense of humor and you have to not take it so seriously. You know, if I don't have these clothes, I'm going to be fine without them. And it's also part of the contemplative stage of reflecting on things at a deeper level. And we're called to that at this stage in your life.
We're living in an era where we think that this is the first time in history that we've been in crisis, whether it be political or economic or social. How do we engage with the conversation and the discourse of living in a time that is so tumultuous and bordering on reckless in terms of what we experience as people having some knowledge of history and history repeating itself? How do we engage with this conversation of equity and diversity and inclusion and in the little bits of volunteer work that we're doing? How, how does this all connect to the letting go piece of what was and now what is?
One of the things I'm aware of is that this is not new. And how do you stay in the struggle is the question that I ask myself a lot. How do you stay in the struggle? And the answers I've come up with is what we've started this whole conversation with. I stay in the struggle because of friendship that supports me and calls me, because of the communities that call me to get engaged and stay engaged, and picking up on what Joan said about we have had more opportunity to reflect and contemplate the situations of our life. I I often reflect on the wisdom of my ancestors, the women who have gone before me, who are strong women and stayed in the fight and kept responding despite the negativity and the violence and the evil of the conversation around them. They stayed in the fight for justice, for peace, for hope. I thought of the book that so inspired me when I was studying for my master's degree, You Can't Kill the Spirit by Pam McAllister. And that's just snippets of women across the world who engaged in the struggle for justice with other women and kept at things like racism and sexism and homophobia. And they kept in the struggle because they believed in one another and because they supported one another. And so I think that's how you do it. You do it because of friends who support you, friends who call you, and you do it because if you don't, you are part of the evil.
Mm. Wow, powerful. If you don't, you're part of the evil. Yeah, I just want to go back to something you talked about a little earlier, this Reverend Buddy. She was a very big inspiration for me. I read that book on bravery as well, Becoming Brave. And when she spoke truth to power, which was not intentional, she was doing her preaching. She was speaking about what she believed in. She spoke of mercy as the centerpiece, mercy and compassion as the centerpiece of who we're called to be and how we're called to act. And I think I resonate with what you just said, and that is we stand together. We're not alone in this. This is our Christian tradition that is not contaminated by our own smallness, but a wider vision of who we can be. And that all comes from the richness of who we associate with and what we believe. And so for me, her preaching the Christian values, the human values, the values of creation to power and greed really struck me. And so I felt inspired by her work as well.
My experience of this question of what do we do? I think you watch television and watch the news at night, and you're just so upset, and you think, "What can I do?" And so when I went to volunteer for this tutoring thing, we had a training, and they went around the room, and everybody who was there for the training were not Notre Dame students. They were just people from the community, and we were asked why we were doing this. And many of us said the same thing. I want to do something to help someone because I feel so frustrated by the evil that's all around us. And so I think those small things that we can do are what we do. And I think that's kind of uh, the modus operandi of our lives. We go to protests, we go to soup kitchens to help out, we volunteer for things, we attend talks and lectures and rallies. That's what we do. And, I think that's what sustains me during these times. And we vote, and I think that's very important too.
Essential. What we close with on the podcast is what's love got to do with all of this? How does love intersect with everything we've talked about, the stories, the reminiscing, the values we hold for our world today? What's love got to do with it?
Well, love has lots of different flavors. There's different types of love. You know, I love Culver's chocolate custard. I love my cat. I love my backyard and my flowers. There's lots of ways in which we love, but I think the underlying theme is like it's the virtue of charity. It is love that compels us, and it's something that enables us to make sacrifices, to share ourselves with others, and to give ourselves away in love. It's taking up our lives and giving it away in love. And it's not always grand and glorious, and it doesn't always have romantic feelings, but it's a resource that we can rely on within ourselves. Love is a motivator that allows us to do all like allows Donna to go to work in these difficult situations, and it 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 allows Maureen to work with people who are really diminished in life, and to do it with love. So I think it's a resource that we rely on, and it can't be captured in one definition. Love is many things to many people.
Right, Joan?
The first thing that I think about when I think about love is how love heals the hurts in our lives, how love
Mhm.
heals the times that we have been broken and deeply conflicted and deeply hurt, and how love heals those and gives us the strength to move on. And then how
Mhm.
love draws us out of ourselves and into the world in ways that we would have never imagined or foreseen, and how love supports
Mm.
us along the way. I know that I could never do anything that I have done in my life alone without having known the love of friends and the love of family and the love of people like my students. How that love has been such a propelling force in my life to draw me out and pull me further and further into what I think is the heart of God, the mission of being a person of justice and peace in the world. It is love that has done that. It is love that has healed me enough to be able to do that work, and it is love that keeps pulling me out of myself to respond.
So beautiful. Yes. Someone said, or it is known, that you can't say that you love God and you don't love your neighbor. You don't love people. That is true. And another thing that I love to mention is Father Rupe's fall in love and stay in love. And that's the meaning of everything. And it's not this romantic stuff that we see thrown across the screen. It's something deeper than that, something that is essential for human life, created life, isn't it?
Very much so.
Any final things we want to add to this friendship conversation before I bid my farewell?
I just want to say thanks for being my friends.
Yeah.
Mm.
Thank you for good friendships.
And now for the wrap-up. You have just had a human experience from a spiritual being. We have so much to learn. So go forth to love and speak the truth. Ad majorem Dei gloriam. A couple of announcements. Don't forget to rate and follow us on Apple Podcast or Spotify. We are on Facebook at Love Speak Truth, and visit our website at www.lovespeaktruth.org. For a few credits, when all is said and done, I give thanks and credit for sponsors, producers, and contributors who made this podcast possible. Mega shout out to IBVM Region Leadership, Megan Butel, Jennifer Schmitz, Laurenti Wright for the keyboard music, the late Sister Maria Beer IBVM for her composition of the music Women Bearing Witness. It takes a village, folks. Thanks for listening to Love Speak Truth.